James Robert Elliott here. I'm here live with Luki Daniel Gariento, and we're going to talk today about how to live purposefully and really how you can make sure what you're doing is actually what you want to do. Because sometimes we realize it, sometimes we don't realize it, sometimes we realize it and we don't do anything about it, or we don't know what we can do or how to get out of the mess sometimes we put ourselves in, or the bind we put ourselves in, which creates, well, obviously a lot of issues. I'm sure, Luki, you've seen it too. Depression, anxiety, worry, living unfulfilled, people filling their lives with some sort of vice, whether it's gambling or booze or food or drugs, or depression or meds as well, because they're not doing what they want to do. So, tell us a little more about when working with people, what is living on purpose to you? What is finding your purpose to you? We'll probably start with that, and then we'll get into some really cool stuff like your podcasts and your upcoming book and app. So let's start with, what is living on purpose?
Perfect. So first of all, James, thanks for having me on and allowing me to kind of share some of these messages. But as a quick introduction, so Luki, and you got my name pretty good. Usually people butcher it quite heavily, so I'm glad that you were able to get through that. But my background was in computer science. I did management consulting for a bunch of years, and then now I turned into career coaching. And I like to tell people that I found my purpose helping others find theirs. Right. So with that context, for me, the purpose of life is to live life purposefully, right? So the big question is, are you the one making the decisions? In career coaching, we have like the concept of like the North Star. People are going in a direction, they're navigating through the stars in order to get to the place. So people are always worried about, which star am I following? Which constellation am I heading to? But I like to ask people, well, are you the one steering the ship? Right. And a lot of the clients and the people that I work with in my culture, it's kind of predestined, right? So there's the common like doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer that you're supposed to become, right? And obviously there's all sorts of different career paths now that are upcoming, but you're supposed to go to college, university, you're supposed to get a degree, you're supposed to get a job, family, kids, live in a suburban household, white picket fence, dog, and all that sort of stuff, right? So that's kind of
that should, or that's supposed to, right?
It should and supposed to, right? So taking the time and actually thinking about, well, is this something that I want, or is this something that's wanted for me, right? And oftentimes it's very hard to separate the two, because did I want to become a doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer? Or is it because my mom and dad? Is it because the culture and all the cousins, uncles, aunties, and everyone, the village wanted that for them? Because there's prestige and stuff associated with them, and then a lot of money. So that's kind of in essence for me. And then unpacking that in terms of like, well, how do I know if I'm living purposely? Is kind of what I tend to help folks with.
And that's the thing. And there's, to your point, I see in what I do too, so many people and so many issues out there, because they're either working for a company they don't want to work for just to afford a certain lifestyle, just to please people or please culture or family or parents, or to brag or make themselves feel better internally, because they have all this stuff to wave around or to pacify them. There's that. There's, to your point, like thinking, oh, I have to, and even hearing it from my own, lineage and things, get a good job, get a stable job, things like that. Well, what if that's not what I want to do? What if I want to create something awesome myself? And again, to your point, I was in tech, I was in sales, I was in IT for many years, and I learned a lot, but I was definitely not living on purpose. And so glad that I found my purpose. And I love that we're having this conversation. This is right up my alley. I love talking about this stuff. Love seeing how to get people literally living life on purpose, versus just, well, this is the default, this is what was expected, I floated through this, I went to high school, then college, then university, then maybe a master's or MBA, because that's what people do, or I have to, or to get a good job you need to, which, I mean, people all the time are proving that's changing. So I love this. This is great. I think a lot of people need to hear this too, especially during these times, because people have gotten times to either be off and think about what they really want to do. They've had time to actually do some things they love, whether it's sports or just social or something different. They've had a chance to see that and realize, wow, like once out of the rat race and let's say the work, you're like, well, I'm not really happy doing that, or I want to do something different, or start my own business, or find something fulfilling, or help people, give back. So.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. That doesn't mean that everyone should become an entrepreneur, start their own thing, and quit and what have you. But thinking about the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, call it your job or whatever it is that something that you want to be doing, right? And of course, there's the practicalities of keeping a roof over your head and feeding the family and all that sort of stuff. But there's that, and then there's other things that, well, people have half an hour of a day that they can spend. So could you spend that on like a Netflix or a streaming service or whatever, or you spend it growing, reading a book, or consuming
Yep.
content online,
Course, or
taking an
something.
online
Yeah.
course or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And if that's something that lights you up, then find what that is, and instead of doing some of those other things that kind of like numb you and kind of turn you off, it's those things that really energize you, and really figuring out what are those things. Looking back in your past, when you were growing up in school or whatever, did you have those things that afterwards you were just fully energized, you were in like a state of flow or whatever? Those are great hints to actually take a look at where your purpose might lie, right? And if you think about it, whether or not you actually find this kind of one purpose or not, which I actually don't think there's necessarily one person for everybody, and it's a
Fair.
moving target at the same time too, right? So, but if you have these things that you're doing on a regular basis that kind of light you up, you're interested, you're curious, and you're excited about doing it, well, if that's your life, that doesn't sound like a bad life either, right? So
No,
whether or not
it's
you
true.
find this
Exactly.
what you call a purpose or not, so yeah.
I think it's often too the like you said that there's the cultural influence, a familial, religious, societal influence about you have to do this, you have to make a lot of money, you have to do. I mean, there's many studies showing, and don't get me wrong, I like having nice things too. I like having the cottage and the boat, but also there's a lot of studies showing that the amount of money you make is not proportional to your happiness, especially after about 80 to 100K. After that,
Sure.
it's very marginal. And even there's a lot of people in the world who are in third world countries who are far happier than some of our first world countries, and they're
Mhm.
far happier, far more fulfilled, and they make pennies compared to us. So it's really interesting looking at that. And I love traveling and meeting people who are so happy, and they have these small little shacks or a nice but small house, and they're so happy. They're so happy. It's incredible to see. And again, it's not that you can't be rich and wealthy and have lots of cool things and be happy, but do it in a way that fulfills you. And I really believe that when we do that, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this too, when you do what's purposeful, when you do what you love and what fulfills you, you're going to be great at it. You're going to be unstoppable at it. You're just going to go for it. And you will, I think, make great money because you become an expert and people get lit up by working with you. And they, as there's a saying, people don't buy your what, they don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Sure.
And if you're lit up, and they're gonna be excited to work with you too, of course. So what do you think of that out of curiosity too?
Yeah, I definitely echo a lot of those sentiments because I mean, when you're doing something that you love doing, that you are improving, and you have yours and other people interested in mind, then it just comes out. There's an energy and excitement on that. And if you actually step back to think about what actually is money, so if we're talking about money and earning money to buy lots of stuff, well, money is actually just perceived value that people provide. So if I am doing whatever for you, so if I am a doctor, like would I rather go to that doctor that knows himself, that's energetic and really loves the field that they're in, or kind of the mediocre doctor that's just been doing it for a while and is just going through the motions, right? Like which one are you going to go to? Now translate doctor to anything that you do. So whether you are like in sanitation, like just pick up that garbage as best as you can, whether you're a host on a TV show, whether you're a teacher, whether whatever, do whatever it is the best that you can. And the other part, other aspect of it is instead of necessarily finding the stuff that you love doing, could you instead take whatever you're doing and love what you're doing right there, and find the parts of it that you do love and do more of it, right? And take a look at and say, okay, out of my job, there's 50% of it I like and 50% I don't. How can I do more of the stuff that I like and do less of the stuff that I don't? And there's a concept called job crafting, which allows you to say, hey, manage leadership, manage the organization and make that 50% now 80%, 90%, or whatever. And maybe you create this kind of new job that focuses on all the stuff that you love. So how might that change kind of yourself when you are more purposeful in the stuff that you do? Now, not all organizations will be that flexible for you to be able to do that. And maybe the answer is for you to go off and do it on your own. But yeah, I think a lot of that is taking a step back and thinking about the mindset that you bring to whatever it is you do. Because at the end of the day, from my perspective, it is not necessarily the what you're doing. It's the who you are as you are doing whatever it is. That makes kind of one of the biggest differences in anything that you do, right? I was talking to my son who was on an online Zoom party, right? Because they have them there, and he was saying, well, this party is boring, right? And I was saying, well, all these other people that are on are having a fun time, they're enjoying themselves. So is the party boring, or are you boring? Right. So I really put it on him to say, okay, it's really up to you to make things boring or not, make things interesting or not, even in some of the most mundane things. And if you can do that on the most mundane things, imagine doing it for stuff that are awesome and amazing, right? So yeah, those are a couple of thoughts and insights on that.
I think that I like that because it aligns with my, take responsibility. There's no, there's no victimhood, blaming a victim, nothing's to blame. However, whatever happens to us in our life, removing blame and guilt and shame, because that doesn't do anything but harm us. But taking responsibility, to your point of, okay, this is boring. How can I make it better? Or I'm not doing what I want to do, or I'm not helping people, I'm not fulfilled. Cool. Take responsibility for it, because no one's going to take responsibility for your own growth or healing or development or change. So that is awesome. One thing I wanted to ask you about, because you and I had a really great talk about elevating education. And, instead of the default, okay, go to high school, then go to college or university or start trade school, do you have to do that? Sure, those are great for some people, but do you have to do that? Because again, it's almost like, well, that's the norm. And instead of, well, that's how to be successful. I mean, there's so many people these days. I mean, YouTubers, Instagrammers, influencers, speakers, all these people that are wildly successful. I mean, my dad watches a show, and this guy's got some odd million subscribers and followers. And all he does is he works in a shop, and he moves and he works with machines and builds stuff and does stuff around his property and cuts down trees and works on old, tractors and things. And this guy's got millions and millions of followers, and he makes probably $500,000 a year. So talk to us a little bit about elevating education, please.
Yeah, so for me, that is the typical path, as you mentioned, high school, college, university, trades, or whatever, and you're expected to do that in order to be a functioning member of society, right? But if you think about, well, there's a quote that I quite like from Mark Twain. He says, "Don't let school get in the way of education." Right. And what that means to me is that there's so many ways to learn, right? So you can learn in the institution of school, right? And you can go to class, sit in front of a professor and learn a whole bunch of stuff, do some assignments and pass some exams and learn. But possibly not. You could probably go around your yard and start fixing things and doing things and showing how amazing and, ooh, this didn't quite work and this got better, and then show your evolution in that. So a lot of those kind of YouTube sensations are showing their path, right? They are starting with something that they do and enjoy, and then they show how they got good and then better and better, and now they're great. And they may not be the greatest in the world, but they probably have some charisma and some other skills that help them become more interesting to other folks. So if you take that education outside of the institution of school, that's what I'm talking about, and really taking advantage of all the opportunities out there, and learning from them, right? So there are some people in the world that learn better in a very structured environment, right? You have classes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it is, and these are your assignments, you have to hand them in. Some people do that. There are many other ones that, you know what, I could learn it all on YouTube, right? I can take a Coursera course, I can take whatever, and I could learn it much faster. But then I'll have to pick and choose, like, which is the best one. And there's all sorts of theories around like different types of learning, where school-based learning is more of the folks that do well kind of with language processing and less on like kind of the tactical or the visual ones, right? So depending on whether you subscribe to kind of that modality of learning, then you might be better actually just doing the work, right? Go and work in a company that is doing what you want to do, and sit beside them, right? Get their coffee and say, oh,
Yeah.
can you tell me what you're doing there? What are you doing about that? And then maybe they would help you, allow you to help them to do whatever it is. But that's not the type of environment that's set up. Because if you think about back in the day, everyone learned pretty much through some sort of apprenticeship, right? There wasn't the former institution of school, but we still learned. People still got upskilled. And then in order to do the mass production of stuff, then you had to go to school so that you could graduate like hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of students at a given time in order to do that. So what I want folks to kind of take away from this is to be a little bit more purposeful for the learning. So one part of the school institution is, are you learning just for the grade, or are you actually learning for the learning itself? Right? Because a lot of
Fair
folks, and
point.
I'm a victim of that too, is like, sure, I got an 80, a 70, a 90 on this exam, but did I actually learn anything? Because I probably forget it 2 weeks after I'm doing it, right?
Yeah. Is it
And
valuable? Are you going to take it with you anywhere in life? Exactly.
exactly. So if you can take some of those skills and say, okay, how can I apply this in the real world? That's why things, I mean, school is progressing where they have kind of work integrated learning, co-ops and internships where you're getting more into that. But why is it only like 4 months at a time, or like 2 4 month terms out of 4 years, right? Why
Yeah. Or
why
small
shouldn't
part.
you,
Exactly.
or a small part, just a small assignment where you get to work with a company here and there? And it kind of baffles me how many people are studying for something in order to get a job in somewhere, but don't know a single person in that profession. Have never talked to one, never had a coffee with one, never met one. They might have seen them on TV, right? But never actually known anybody who wants to be doing what they want to be doing, right? So part of that elevation of school is on that side, and the second part is on the soft skills part, right? So there's a lot of hard skills that are being taught in terms of how to do this, how to do that, new theories and practices and whatever. And me, I feel that what's lacking is the soft skills, or if, for those that follow kind of Simon Sinek, he calls them human skills. And I like that name better because it's not soft, it's not something that's fuzzy and squishy. It's something that's required. Everyone needs to learn how to communicate, to be able to deal with others, to handle conflicts, to organize their times and all that sort of stuff, manage their mind. Everyone needs to know how to do it. Now, in varying degrees, depending on the type of job,
True.
but it
Yeah.
should be
But
something
still.
that's integrated
Yeah.
somewhere.
I like that the more key skills versus soft skills, because soft, you're right, almost makes it sound fluffy and well, it's not as important
Yeah,
as,
it's
but
optional too,
it's
right? So yeah,
paramount.
yeah,
Because this
yeah,
stuff is, I think, paramount. I mean, again, you don't, maybe university or college is good for some, better for others. 95% of what I use, uh, I learned from a lot of my postgraduate stuff. NLP training, business schools, workshops, courses I took. That's what 95% of what's made me success in my relationships, both personal and professional, my business, my own fulfillment, my health, even too. It has been stuff, again, not to knock education, higher education, school in any way or form, but I think they're well, I mean, you need something specific for what you want to do versus, okay, here's school. We're going to school you on something that was, in my opinion, designed during the Industrial Revolution and taught people how to be a cog in a wheel.
for sure.
Again, not devaluing education or higher education, but again, is it be all end all? Or to your point, yeah, do you have to do it? Or is it just a default people do before even thinking, do I want to blow 20, 30, 40, 50K on all this or more, or hundreds of $1,000s if you go to MBA and masters and doctorates? Or is there something better, more specific, more relevant, and that'll help more? I really like how you've talked about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would say that school still has a ton of value, right? But a lot of
Absolutely.
times when I talk to folks, it's that I learn more outside of the class than
Yeah.
inside,
Yeah.
right? So student clubs, volunteering, all everything that happens there,
Social.
meeting new people, all the social stuff, even like part-time jobs, doing TA work and all that sort of stuff, allowing you to manage your time. All that stuff is great and fantastic, right? But that's not part of like the school part of it, right? The class
Or
part of it,
yeah.
the grades and the assignments, your GPA and all that sort of stuff, right? So there's a ton of value that can be garnered from that. So I would encourage folks to look up from their books a little bit and stop and smell the roses and get around and take advantage of all that great stuff. And take it from someone who didn't do that because I was, it's kind of do as I say, not what I did. And that's why I kind of share this stuff I wish I knew earlier, the stuff that I didn't do that I wish I had done. And I think I would have been better off if I was able to kind of have some of that feedback and learning as well. So.
Well, like you said, education has almost been either commoditized or like you were saying, you called it an entry badge almost,
Mm.
or the buy-in to the poker game, right? It's like people think it helps you win versus it just, as you said, gets you in. And I think that's a really great point. It can get you in places, but again, education is great, but experience is the mother of all learning. Failure, of course, is one of the other mothers of all learnings, and I think
Sure.
that's important. As you put it, during my college and my university years, I learned more from the struggle and social relationships
Yeah.
and the frustrations and the work and learning to work efficiently and effectively, because I had assignments coming at the wazoo, and just learning to do better and the gaps in either social skills or driving myself and self-managing myself and learning that too. You're right, a lot of the skills came from outside the classroom.
Yep. Yeah, and I think there should be, if possible, like a course on failing, because I think that's a great skill. And you
Yeah.
don't call it failing, just call it learning, because there's a quote that I quite like. It's I never lose, I either win or I learn, right? So I like to tell
Yeah.
people that in my life I have never failed. I have just learned a whole lot, right?
That's
And
so
if you can
true.
kind of change that perspective, because like and that's a challenge with school, where getting a whatever a 50%, a 60%, 70%, that's a failure for a lot of folks, right? They didn't do well, they didn't get the 4.0 and all that sort of stuff. But why not? Okay, what can you do instead, and how can you get that up, right? And it kind of leads to a little bit of lowballing, in the sense that, well, there are bird courses that people take because they know they can do well, right? But
Yeah, to get the
what if
grade, but you
yeah, but what if they should be taking the more challenging stuff, because that helps you grow and actually reach your potential, versus the easy stuff that you already know how to do, right? So
well,
yeah,
exactly.
that's some of the things that a difference in mindset might be helpful for folks.
True. And like you said, instead of just thinking with the mark and, maybe getting ace the marks, but then remembering nothing and just remembering facts and speeds and feeds without getting some real knowledge, which usually is when action and failure or action is applied to it. I saw it was these three photos I saw online the other day. I was thinking of buying them. One said action, then it
Mm-hmm.
says failure, and then it says success. And it's
Mm,
got a couple little subtexts to it, but it's so true. No, failure, only feedback. And if you're not willing to fail and not willing to try and do and take risk and take action, us Canadians are so risk adverse. I was talking with some friends about this. It's just
yeah,
be willing to fail, be willing to learn. Because again, like you
yeah,
said, there is no failure. There's only feedback. So how on this whole theme, how does someone really figure out if they're doing what they want to do or what they want to do? Any tips on that? And really, how do you figure that out other than coming to you? But how else can they start thinking about that?
Well, if folks wanted to do that on their own, I would encourage folks to take the time, right? And I use a concept called non-negotiable time. So everyone has half an hour in their day, right? You can find it early in the morning, late in the evening, maybe midday or whatever. You have half an hour that you can do. So instead of scrolling on social media or whatever it is that you're doing, take this for yourself, right? And just examine. So a lot of it will be some self-inquiry. I use journaling, which I find very helpful. So I have a method which I call the 5-2-2-1, right? And it's basically 5 minutes a day, 2 minutes writing about those things that drained you, and you're like, oh my goodness, if I didn't have to do this again, I wouldn't want to. But be as detailed as possible. Like, what were you doing? Who were you doing it with? What was the context and all that sort of stuff? And then 2 minutes on any time that you were doing stuff that energized you, that stuff that lit you up. If you were ever in a state of flow during that day, what were you doing, right? Again, as specific as possible. And then the last 1 minute, thinking about how to minimize the first and maximize the second, right? So if you do that 5 minutes a day as part of your half an hour, and then using the rest of the time to figure out, okay, what do I do? What did I learn from it? Can I have a conversation with my boss? Can I pick up this new hobby? Can I register for this course? Can I talk to these people that used to be in a club in my high school that are now doing some cool and interesting things? Use that time to kind of advance your curiosity, your interest, your excitement, and turn that into something that potentially you can bring into your job. And if you can't bring it into your job, do it on the side as kind of a side hustle there. And over time, over a week, a month, a year, you'll start noticing patterns, right? Oh, I get lit up whenever I do this type of stuff. And I get challenged whenever I do this type of stuff, right? So if you double down on those things that light you up, well, why wouldn't you? If you have an
Mhm.
opportunity to do something during your day, taking the time to do the stuff that lights you up, I think is going to be
Yeah,
super beneficial. So at the very least, allocate time to it, right? Whether it's journaling, whether it's having tons of coffee chats with people who are doing this stuff, whether it's
true.
just examining like, what do I even want, right? All those dreams
What do
that
you
you've
want to do?
had as a kid, right? All the things on your bucket list, like, well, why not start on any and or all of them, right? So maybe not all at the same time, but pick one and
True, true.
and go through that. Yeah. So that's what I would say is give yourself some time, some space to even think, right? Be alone, whether you want to go through like meditation, whether you want to go through a coach or a therapist, right? There's all
Yeah,
sorts of
yeah,
different things.
true.
Have a conversation with a
Mentor.
friend,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, all the mentoring conversations that happen, right? And even sharing your insights with others, because oftentimes when you reflect back and share what you enjoy as a mentor for someone else, you kind of reflect back, oh yeah, I do like that. And this is the part that does
Mhm.
keep me engaged, and these are the other things that keep me up at night, right? So if you can
Yeah.
consider doing that, I think that would be a great step in the right direction.
I think it's great talking out loud. I mean, how many times do we answer ourselves or figure it out just by talking out loud? So like you
Sure.
said, talking to someone, a mentor, a coach, friends. I tell people careful with friends and make sure your friends will encourage you and will lift you up, and they're not the oh
Fair
that's
enough.
too hard or too risky or carefully, very careful, because often the people who sabotage us the most are some of our friends or our
That's
family. So
fair.
just be aware. But I agree. Talk to lots of people. Again, talk out loud, journal. For me, talking out loud to a friend, I get the answers just
Mm,
by talking aloud and thinking about it. But your point is valid, and put some time in the calendar. Otherwise, it's going to get filled up with something else to
yep.
do something you want. Noodle it around, think about it, take action, do some reading, do some testing, interview someone who whatever does coaching or is a mentor, teaches NLP, or helps people find their purpose like yourself.
Yeah.
Have a quick chat. And I think it's very
Yeah.
valuable.
Yeah, and especially if there are
What?
folks that are already doing what you want to be doing, then
Yeah,
they
exactly.
probably already have the roadmap, right? So you can kind of ask
Yeah.
them, what did you
Yeah.
do? And then kind of choose to follow that or choose to do something different.
True, true, exactly. And be careful if someone's trying to tell you something won't work if they've never done it before,
Fair
or
enough. Yeah.
And again, just be careful, be careful who you talk to and who you ask. That's why I think I really strongly believe in mentors, coaches, experts, because they've been there and done that, and they can say yes, this is possible, no, it's not possible, this will be easy, this will be hard, you can do it, or this is what it's going to take. Versus some of the naysayers out there. Again, just a word of caution, because not everyone will encourage you. So in the last couple minutes, Luki, how can tell us about you're having a book that you're writing coming out? There's an app, there's a podcast channel. How can people reach you?
Yeah, so if folks want to reach out on LinkedIn, that's probably the best way. Connect, follow, and I share a lot of useful insights, especially for kind of young professionals, recent grads, even students as well. For anyone interested in kind of purpose, kind of growth, elevating themselves through kind of human skills education or the whole mentorship. Those are the kind of the three big things that I thrive on.
Right.
In terms of the book, so the first book was published, Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier. That was the soon to be grad edition for all the students out there. And the new one coming up is the young professionals edition. So it's kind of the follow up to that, where after you graduate,
Very
now
cool.
what, right? And we talk a lot about adulting, right? Which is one of those things
Hmm.
like, oh, you gotta get a job, get a house, get a mortgage, credit cards, and a new car, and then get promoted and all that stuff. Should I get married? Have a kids and all that sort of stuff, right? So we don't necessarily go deep dive into some of those later ones, but we talk about a lot of things because everyone struggles with it, and unfortunately, everyone's expected to know. Well, you're supposed to know how to do this stuff, right? Everybody else does, and oftentimes without some sort of mentor guidance, maybe good friends or good
Yeah,
seniors or whatever
yeah.
to help you, then it's more challenging. So that's planned to be out kind of later in the year, hopefully for a Christmas type stocking stuffer. Might
Oh,
be available then. And then the app. So app is Career Buddy. If you want to go to app.careerbuddy.app.com, and hopefully we can link that there. But basically, it's a career buddy, kind of a mentor in your pocket, a Lukey in your pocket, so to speak, right? And right now we've launched functionality for the job search. So for those that are interested in the jobs, it has kind of like a wizard in terms of all the different steps that you need. So like step one is go sign up on your job boards and LinkedIn, go get a template for your resume, get it reviewed, and go through all these different online scanning engines, and then go get it reviewed by an employment professional, and then so on and so forth. And a lot of video, audio, blog type resources for folks to kind of learn that whole process. And then the idea for that is to grow with you, right? So hey, now that you got a job, like how do you get a promotion? How do you be more effective in your communication? So a lot of the stuff that we talked about, giving you resources for that. So that's kind of out. We're in a bit of a soft launch right now as we're planning. So if you want to register and take a look at it, it's kind of in the MVP version 1.0, and then we'll kind of grow and grow and grow it, that functionality as well. And yeah, so those are kind of the two big things. And if you want to also, I have a lot of content on my YouTube channel, and it's youtube.com/focusinspired would be where it is. And then on podcasts, so there's the Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast as well. So if you want to listen in some of those conversations, I have other guests that share kind of their stuff I wish I knew earlier from their mentoring perspective. And yeah, a lot of other tips on jobs, careers, and life in general. So yeah, and I'm pretty approachable. So if anybody wants to connect on LinkedIn, or that would be probably the best way. So, and thanks again, James, for having me on.
My pleasure, brother. And so this is how to live purposefully, and really start thinking: am I living purposefully? What I want to do? Is this what I have to do? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do, or am I being a good or bad, whatever? Does this, if I do this, that means this, or if I don't do this, then that means that. All this is false. It's just our programming we've had over the years. And really think for yourself and take time, and because you can't think, like, it's hard to be creative and think when you're running from a bear, right? Hard to think when you're running from a bear. So if we're in this rat race and just doing our daily thing, it's hard to think, well, why am I doing this? Do I really want to do it? Is it actually what I want to do? Does it fulfill me? What do I want to do? Or how do I want to do it? And tying that back to all the things you said, today, Lukey, as well. So thank you. Be aware, guys. Reach out to Lukey if you have any questions. What's your website, Lukey? How can they find you?
It's focusinspired.com, but like I said, LinkedIn is probably the best way. Just reach out, connect, and let's have a conversation. Happy to help where I can, and yeah, looking forward to connecting with all of you.
Amazing. Thank you very much for being online with me, brother. Much appreciated, and I hope everyone got a lot of value out of this. I sure did, and I enjoy talking. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, is living on purpose and just having an awesome life. I think that's why we're here. Whatever or whoever put us here, it's not to work our lives away and save just so you can spend more or buy more stuff and make more money to buy more stuff. It's to have fun and enjoy and create great relationships and learn and grow and be fulfilled. I really believe that's why we're meant to be here. So this is a favorite of mine to talk about. Thank you again, everyone. Go have your best day ever, and thanks for joining us.